The space station orbiting Yelvana Prime was silent, floating like a forgotten relic in the black sea of stars. Inside its rusted halls, engineers from many worlds worked to fix what was once a great medical hub. One of those workers was a human named Eli Marris, a mechanic, quiet and observant who always kept to himself. Eli wasn't like the others. He didn't have glowing implants or robotic eyes. Just strong hands, clever fingers, and a way of seeing things others missed. He preferred silence over talk and broken machines over crowded meetings. But that silence ended when a sealed cryopod was found deep in the cargo level. It wasn't just any pod. It was alien, smooth and silver, humming quietly like a living thing. A thick layer of frost covered the glass, hiding the figure inside. "She's alive," said Commander Brask, a lizard-like officer with cold eyes. "But the armor she wears is like nothing we've seen. Not even our plasma tools can cut it." "Leave it," said a tech. "We don't need trouble." But Eli didn't speak. He just stood near the pod, staring at the strange armor that hugged the alien woman's body. It looked like liquid metal, frozen in motion. The curves of it followed her form, but it sealed her entirely. No openings, no joints, no way in or out. She looked peaceful. Pale blue skin, long tendrils of silver hair curled against her neck. But her face showed pain even in sleep. That night, Eli couldn't rest. The image of her haunted him. Why would someone be sealed like that? Was it protection or a prison? The next morning, while the others worked above deck, Eli sneaked down to the pod again. He placed his hand on the glass. The pod hummed louder. A faint glow pulsed from the center of her armor, like a heartbeat responding to his touch. He took a step back, confused. The station AI spoke. "Unauthorized contact with specimen 721A detected. Who is she?" Eli asked. "Classified," the AI replied. "Recovered during the Osari collapse. Origin unknown. Armor resistant to scans. Attempts to open have failed." Eli frowned. "What happens if she wakes up?" "Unknown. Risk level, high." That didn't stop him. He pulled out his old human tools most engineers ignored now. A sonic tuner, an analog scanner, a small tactile probe. While the others used plasma cutters and code breakers, Eli believed in the old ways. He studied the armor for hours, hands steady, heart racing. Then he found it, a micro pattern near the center of her chest plate. So tiny it was nearly invisible. A groove, not part of the natural design. It was like a keyhole, but not for any key he had ever seen. Eli reached into his pouch and pulled out a small copper ring. Just a simple tool his father gave him long ago. He pressed it against the groove. The pod glowed. The armor pulsed. The ring clicked into place. Then came a sound, a deep, echoing crack, like stone splitting. Steam burst from the edges of the pod and the armor began to shift. The station lights flickered. Alarms remained silent. Eli stepped back as the armor peeled away, slowly like petals opening in reverse. Her eyes opened. Not in fear, but in focus. Sharp, bright, glowing violet. She stared at Eli and whispered one word. "Human." The air inside the chamber felt heavy. Warm mist rose from the open cryopod as the alien woman took her first breath in what seemed like centuries. Eli stood frozen, afraid to move. Her eyes, bright violet and fierce, locked on him with strange recognition, as if she had known him before. "Human," she repeated softly, her voice trembling but strong, filled with confusion and awe. "You opened it." Eli swallowed hard. I didn't mean to." "You touched the seal," she interrupted. "No one should be able to. Not even my kind." Her words made little sense, but Eli could see pain in her face. The armor that had covered her was now melting into thin silver threads, fading into her skin like mist. She staggered forward, catching the edge of the pod for balance. He reached out without thinking. She flinched at first, but when his hand touched hers, the glow in her eyes dimmed. It was like she found calm in his touch. "Easy," he said softly. "You've been asleep a long time." She blinked, trying to steady herself. "How long?" Eli looked at the station's old display. "Records say 172 years, she gasped quietly. Her eyes filled with something between sorrow and disbelief. "Then my world is gone." Eli didn't know what to say. He just stood there, feeling the weight of her silence. Suddenly, the AI's voice echoed through the corridor. "Security alert. Unauthorized specimen activation. Lockdown initiated." Red lights flashed above them. Doors began to seal. Eli grabbed her arm. "We need to move, now." She didn't question him. Together they ran through the narrow corridors, boots echoing against the metal floor. The hum of power surged as security drones woke from standby mode. "Who are you?" Eli asked between breaths. "Vareen," she answered. "Last guardian of the Osari vaults." "Guardian?" he repeated. "What were you guarding?" She glanced at him, her expression dark. "Not what? Who?" Before he could ask, a bright beam cut across the hall. Security drones. They fired stun rounds, lighting the corridor with blue flashes. Eli pushed Vareen behind a crate and grabbed his small plasma cutter. "Stay down!" he shouted. He fired back, short bursts of light. The drones fell, smoking, but more arrived from above. The station shook as automated turrets dropped from the ceiling. Vareen raised her hand, and for a moment Eli saw her eyes flash again. A wave of invisible energy burst out from her palm. Every drone froze midair, metal twisting like paper. Then silence. Pieces fell to the floor with soft metallic clinks. Eli stared. What was that?" Vareen breathed heavily. "A fraction of what the seal was meant to contain." "I shouldn't still have it." He stepped closer. "The seal, it wasn't just armor, was it?" She shook her head. "It was a prison built to hold my power. Only one with a certain signature could break it." "Signature?" Eli frowned. "You mean human?" "Yes," she whispered. "Long ago, our creators said humans carried something pure, something that could unlock what others sealed. I thought it was a myth." Eli couldn't tell if he should be proud or terrified. They reached the maintenance tunnel. Behind them, the AI's voice echoed again. "Warning. Containment breach detected. All personnel report to evacuation pods." The station was waking up, systems flickering, alarms screaming. But Eli didn't run for escape. He looked at Vareen, who now stood tall despite her exhaustion, staring through a small viewport at the stars. "What happens if they find you?" he asked. "They will destroy me," she said simply. "The Council declared me lost and dangerous. My power could shift the balance of the core worlds." Eli frowned. "Then we don't let them find you." Her violet eyes met his. "Why would a human risk himself for an alien weapon?" He smiled faintly. "Because maybe I don't see a weapon. I see someone who needs help." Vareen stared at him for a long moment. Then softly she said, "Perhaps the legends about humans were true." Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered, and far away, a fleet of patrol ships began to turn toward the old station. The hunt had begun. The engines of the old station roared to life for the first time in a century. Dust fell from the ceilings, lights flickered, and the cold corridors trembled. Eli and Vareen moved fast through the lower decks, the sound of alarms echoing around them. Behind, red scanners swept through the halls. The security drones were tracking movement again. Vareen's breathing was uneven. The energy she used earlier had drained her. Her once glowing eyes were dim now, flickering like fading lights. Eli supported her, one arm around her shoulders. "This way," he said, pointing toward a maintenance shaft. "Leads to the docking bay." They climbed through the narrow tunnel, crawling between rusted pipes. Sparks fell from cracked cables above. Every sound made Eli tense. He could hear the faint metallic footsteps of drones following somewhere behind them. When they reached the hatch, Vareen stopped him with a hand on his wrist. "Why are you helping me, human?" she asked quietly. "You could have left me in the pod." Eli turned his head slightly, meeting her tired eyes. "Because you were trapped, and no one deserves to stay locked away forever." Her gaze softened. For a moment, the fear in her eyes faded, replaced by something like trust. "You are strange," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Humans usually are." They opened the hatch and dropped into the docking bay. The air was cold and filled with the smell of old oil. Dozens of abandoned ships stood in silence, covered in dust. Most were useless, damaged or stripped for parts. But one small vessel still had power lights blinking weakly along its frame. Eli ran toward it. This one might still fly. As he activated the controls, the AI's voice rang again, harsh and metallic. "Attention. Unauthorized launch detected." Defense systems engaged. Turrets unfolded from the ceiling. Red dots danced over the floor. Eli jumped into the pilot seat and shouted, "Hold on!" Vareen gripped the edge of the console as the engines roared awake. The ship lifted, metal creaking under pressure. A blast of plasma fire missed them by inches as the bay doors began to close. "Faster, Eli!" Vareen cried. He pulled the throttle to full. The ship shot forward, scraping the closing gates. Sparks exploded around them and then silence. They were free. Stars spread out before them like a field of diamonds. Eli leaned back, catching his breath. We're out. Vareen looked at the dark space behind them. For now. Far behind, small glimmers of light appeared and patrol ships. The fleet was already on their trail. Eli frowned. They really don't want you alive, do they? No, she said softly. They fear what I carry. Eli turned to her. Then tell me, what are they afraid of? She hesitated, then looked down at her hands. The faint glow under her skin returned. Long ago, my people created something called the core of harmony. It was energy, alive, pure, able to heal worlds. But it needed balance. When greed grew among our leaders, the core became unstable. It chose me as its guardian. So they sealed me inside armor and sent me away, before the core could destroy everything. Eli listened in silence, trying to understand. So you're carrying something inside you. Something powerful. Yes, she said. And now that it's awake again, others will come to claim it. They'll use it as a weapon. Eli nodded slowly. Then we don't let them. She looked at him, puzzled. You speak as if this is your fight too. He met her gaze. Maybe it is. Maybe this is why humans were meant to open your seal, not to control you, but to help you. For the first time since she awoke, Vareen smiled faintly. You truly are not like the others. Before Eli could answer, the ship's radar beeped sharply. Multiple signals. The patrol ships had caught up. They're faster, Eli muttered, gripping the controls. We can't outfly them. Vareen's eyes glowed again, brighter now. Then we hide. She placed her palm on the ship's dashboard. Instantly, the metal shimmered, rippling like water. The stars outside bent and twisted until everything turned into darkness. Eli gasped. What did you... Shifted us, she whispered. Between dimensions. They can't see us here. The world outside was silent. No stars, no light, just endless black. The hum of the ship was gone too. Eli looked around, feeling his heartbeat echo in his ears. This is unreal, he said softly. Vareen nodded, her eyes now calm and distant. This place is called the Veil. Few can enter, fewer can return. Eli looked at her carefully. And us? She smiled gently. That depends on what kind of human you really are. Outside the ship, the darkness began to move, shapes forming in the void, whispering in a language neither of them knew. The veil was not empty after all. The ship drifted through silence. No stars, no light. Only endless blackness that felt alive. Eli gripped the pilot's seat tightly, staring out the viewport. Where are we? He whispered. The Veil, Vareen replied softly. A place between time and matter. My people used it for hiding things the universe was not ready to see. He looked at her. And now we're hiding inside it? Yes, she said, her voice calm but low. But it is not safe. The Veil listens. It remembers every secret that enters. Before Eli could answer, something brushed against the ship, soft like wind in water. Then another touch. The metal groaned. Outside, vague shapes moved, almost invisible, like smoke with eyes. What are those? Eli asked, his voice shaking. Vareen closed her eyes. Echoes. Souls of those who tried to cross and failed. A cold shiver crawled up Eli's spine. The sensors blinked uselessly. All readings showed 0. It was as if space itself refused to exist. Then a whisper came through the comms, faint and broken. Man, Eli froze. The voice sounded familiar. Did you hear that? Vareen nodded slowly. The Veil is showing you what it wants. Don't answer it, but the voice grew clearer. Eli Marris. You should not have come, his chest tightened. It was his father's voice, dead for years. How does it know that name? He asked quietly. The Veil takes memories, Vareen said. It uses what you fear most. He clenched his fists. Then it's wasting its time. But deep down, he wasn't so sure. The ship shuddered again. The whispers turned into a chorus, hundreds of voices speaking at once. The hull lights flickered. Vareen pressed her hands against the console, her energy flowing through the metal. It's trying to pull us apart, she said. We must stay focused. Eli joined her, holding the steering levers steady. Can we get out? Maybe. If we find the exit point before the Veil consumes our energy. He looked at the radar. Nothing but static. How do we find something that doesn't exist? Vareen turned her glowing eyes toward him. By trusting what you can't see. Eli almost laughed. That's not much of a plan, but she smiled. It's the only one we have. Outside, the dark shape circled closer. One pressed its face against the glass. Eli jumped back. It looked like a twisted reflection of himself, eyes hollow, mouth moving silently. The reflection reached a hand through the glass. Don't look at it, Vareen shouted. He turned away, heart pounding. Okay, this place is worse than any nightmare. Vareen kept her hands on the controls, murmuring words in her ancient language. The ship began to glow faintly. A path of light appeared in the distance, like a single thread cutting through the black. There, she said, follow it. Eli pushed the thrusters. The ship jolted forward, following the silver thread through the darkness. The whispers grew louder, angry now, begging them to stop. Don't listen, Vareen cried. The path twisted, bending like a snake. Eli's eyes stayed locked on it. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, a bright light appeared ahead, white and pure. That's the exit, she shouted. But before they could reach it, one of the shadows struck the ship. Metal screamed. The engines flared and died. They spun violently, alarms blaring. Eli! Vareen yelled, trying to stabilize the controls. The core is reacting. He saw the energy surging from her chest, bright and wild, spreading through the cockpit. The walls shimmered as if turning into liquid. Let it guide us, she shouted. He reached out, his hand landing over hers. The moment their palms touched, a burst of light filled the ship. The shadow screamed and vanished. Then everything went white. When Eli opened his eyes, the stars were back. The ship floated in quiet space once more. He exhaled deeply, his hands trembling. We made it? Vareen nodded weakly. Yes. But something followed us, he frowned. What do you mean? She pointed out the window. Behind them, far away, a black tear in space remained open, pulsing slowly. It has marked us, she said. Now it will never stop searching. Eli looked at the scar in space, feeling a chill run through him. Then we'll just have to stay ahead of it. Vareen's eyes softened. You still don't understand, Eli Marris? You are the key not only to my seal, but to the veil itself. It opened because of you. He turned to her slowly. What are you saying? She met his gaze, her violet eyes glowing again. You are not just human. You carry the same light that made the core, and now, the universe will want it back. Outside, the scar in space pulsed one last time, like a dark heart still beating. The stars around them shimmered like scattered dust. But to Eli, they looked closer than ever before. The silence after escaping the veil felt almost unreal. Every sound, the hum of the ship, Vareen's slow breathing, the soft crackle of damaged panels, echoed too loud in the small cabin. Vareen sat quietly across from him, her silver hair dimly glowing in the low light. She was weak, but her eyes, those sharp violet eyes, watched him like she was seeing something hidden beneath his skin. What you said, Eli began softly, about me not being just human. What did you mean? Vareen didn't answer right away. She placed her palm on the console, and small holograms bloomed into the air, symbols, planets, faces of species Eli didn't recognize. Long before your kind reached the stars, she said slowly, the Osari created the core of harmony. It was meant to unite every species through balance, mind, body, and soul. But something was missing. The core needed a living link, a vessel that could hold all kinds of energy and still stay whole. She turned to him. That vessel was humanity. Eli frowned. Us, humans. We didn't even know aliens existed until a few centuries ago. Vareen gave a faint smile. You don't remember because they erased it. The ancient races feared what your kind could become. They buried your origin in time and sealed away your connection to the core. Eli leaned forward, his voice low. And you think that connection is what opened your seal? I don't think, she said. I know. Outside the window, a small blue planet came into view, a forgotten mining world named Kavos 9. Eli steered toward it. We need fuel and repairs, and maybe a place to breathe. The ship landed in silence on the cracked surface. Rusted towers and half-buried machinery surrounded them. The world was dead, just wind and dust. They stepped outside. The air smelled like old iron. Vareen walked slowly beside him, still weak but regaining strength. She looked at the ruins and whispered, This planet once belonged to the builders of the Veil. Eli raised a brow. You mean the ones who trapped you? Yes, she said. They believed no human would survive the Veil. They were wrong. They entered a large dome-shaped ruin. Inside were rows of ancient machines covered in symbols that pulsed faintly when Eli approached. Vareen watched, her expression unreadable. They react to you, she murmured. Even after all these years, Eli touched one of the panels. Instantly it lit up. Lines of golden code spread across the walls. A holographic figure appeared in the air. A tall, faceless being with a voice like thunder and wind. Human presence detected, it said. Primary sequence unlocked. Eli took a step back. What is this? Vareen's voice trembled. It's a memory vault. It's recognizing your DNA. The hologram continued. We, the Veilmakers, record this for the last of the humans. You are the carriers of the eternal pattern. Within your cells lies the code of balance. Do not let it fall to those who seek domination. Then the light vanished. Eli stared at the empty space, his heart racing. The code of balance. What does that even mean? Vareen's voice was quiet, but heavy with meaning. It means your people were the source of the core's creation. You were the model, the spark of harmony itself. He tried to process her words. So humanity wasn't just late to the stars? We started it? Yes, she said, and that's why they feared you. Outside, the sky flashed, blinding white for a split second. The ground trembled. Eli rushed to the door. A massive ship had entered the planet's orbit. It wasn't a patrol cruiser this time. It was larger, darker, and armed for war. Who are they? He asked. Vareen's face turned pale. The Council hunters. They must have tracked the Veil scar. Eli's mind raced. How much time do we have? She closed her eyes. Minutes. They ran back to the ship. Dust stormed around them as the ground cracked from nearby impacts. The enemy was already deploying dropships. Eli, Vareen said, gripping his arm. If they capture you, they'll use your code to reactivate the core, and every world will burn. He started the engines. Then we don't give them the chance. The ship lifted off, engines roaring against the storm. Plasma blasts cut through the air, lighting the ground below. Eli maneuvered hard, flying through debris, eyes locked on the sky. A beam grazed their hull, shaking the entire ship. Vareen pressed her hands to the controls again, her energy fusing with the system. Hold steady, she said. I can mask our trail for a moment. The ship shimmered again, vanishing into a flicker of light just before another blast hit where they'd been. When they reappeared, the planet was already far behind them. Both breathed heavily, hearts pounding. Eli looked at her. We can't keep running forever. No, Vareen said quietly. Next time, we fight. Eli nodded slowly. Then we find out who built this core, and why they gave it to us. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly ahead. But far behind them, in the cold darkness, a new signal awakened, a deep pulse echoing across the galaxy. The Veil had spoken once more. The stars blurred past as Eli's ship slipped quietly through the endless dark. Vareen sat beside him, her hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes glowing faintly with a worried light. Both were silent. The chase had stopped, for now, but the tension had not. Outside, a distant planet glowed faintly gold, its rings shimmering like broken glass. The ship's computer identified it, EO7 Abandoned Colony World. EO7. Eli murmured. It's human. Vareen nodded slowly. Long ago, before the collapse, your kind settled there. But the records say it was destroyed. Eli leaned forward, staring at the small sphere. Then maybe the records are wrong. They descended through the thin clouds. Below them stretched a wasteland of cracked stone and half-buried towers. Ancient lights flickered weakly between the ruins, powered by something that refused to die. When the ship landed, dust billowed around it. The air was thin, dry, and cold. Eli stepped out first, his boots sinking into the dust. Vareen followed, her cloak whipping in the wind. All around them stood the remains of a once great human city, wide. Streets now filled with sand, statues toppled, walls scorched. But some parts still stood. Towers made of silver-gray alloy, their shapes almost too perfect to be human. Eli touched one. The metal was smooth, almost warm. This place feels alive. Vareen walked beside him, tracing the markings on a pillar. They built this with the Corps' knowledge, she said quietly. Your ancestors must have known the secrets long before the galaxy did. Eli turned toward a nearby building that still had power. A faint blue light glowed from its entrance. Let's start there. Inside was a vast hall lined with shattered terminals. Dust floated like ghosts in the dim light. In the center stood a black monolith, smooth, untouched, humming softly. What is that? Eli asked. Vareen tilted her head. A beacon, the old kind. It records messages only the chosen can hear. Eli frowned. You mean, yes, she said. You. He hesitated but stepped forward. As his hand touched the surface, the hall filled with light. A human voice, clear, calm, and ancient, spoke. To the one who remembers. We failed. Eli froze. The voice continued, echoing softly through the room. We reached the stars and thought ourselves gods. We built the Corps to unite, not to rule. But power blinds. They sealed our creation and erased our name. If you hear this, you are the link they could not break. The light faded. Silence returned. Eli's throat felt dry. So they knew this would happen, he said. Vareen's eyes softened. They left you a warning. And a hope. She walked around the beacon, touching the strange patterns engraved at its base. Look, she said. These symbols, they match the marks on my armor. Eli crouched beside her. Then maybe your people didn't imprison you. Maybe they were trying to protect you too. Vareen's eyes widened slightly, as if the thought had never occurred to her. Protect me? He nodded. If the Corps went wild, sealing it inside you might have been the only way to keep it from destroying everything. She looked down, her voice quiet. Then I was never meant to wake up. Eli met her gaze. But you did. And maybe that's the point. Before she could reply, a low hum filled the air. The beacon glowed again, brighter this time. Symbols moved across its surface, rearranging into a map, lines connecting distant worlds. At the center pulsed one mark, the Corps' heart. Vareen gasped. That's where it all began, the birthplace of the harmony. Eli stared at it. Then that's where we go. But the ground shook suddenly. Dust rained from the ceiling. Vareen's eyes darted to the door. They found us. Outside, engines thundered. Dozens of drones descended from the sky, followed by a massive ship hovering above the ruins. Its insignia burned bright. The Galactic Council. Eli grabbed Vareen's hand. Run! They raced through the ruins, the air alive with plasma fire. Explosions lit the dark sky. Debris fell around them. One blast struck close, throwing Eli to the ground. Vareen turned, raising her hand. A wave of energy erupted, forming a glowing shield that blocked the next barrage. Go! She shouted. I'll hold them. Not a chance, Eli growled, pulling her up. We're in this together. They reached the ship as more blasts rained down. Eli jumped into the pilot's seat. Vareen collapsed beside him, breathing heavily, her skin flickering with faint light. He fired the engines. The ship lifted, weaving between collapsing towers. A massive beam struck the ground behind them, turning half the city into molten fire. As they rose into the atmosphere, Eli looked back at the dying colony. They wiped this place once. They'll do it again if we don't stop them. Vareen opened her eyes, glowing brighter than before. Then we go to the heart. There, the Corps will decide who truly deserves to hold its power, humans or the Council. Eli tightened his grip on the controls. Then let's make history remember who we really are. Behind them, EOS 7 burned in silence, but its beacon remained, still glowing faintly, whispering across the stars. The humans have returned. The stars grew brighter as the ship left the dead colony behind. Eli sat in silence, his hands firm on the controls. Beside him, Vareen rested, her faint glow now steady again. For hours they flew without words, each lost in thought, each knowing what awaited them could change everything. The coordinates from the beacon led them to a quiet corner of space. There, surrounded by a halo of blue mist, floated a massive structure, ancient, cracked, and pulsing faintly with life. It wasn't metal or stone. It looked grown, like a living organism sleeping among the stars. Vareen whispered, almost in awe. The core's heart. Eli stared at it, breathless. It's beautiful. The structure began to react as they approached. Rings of light rippled outward, scanning the ship. Symbols appeared across the dashboard. Unknown words, yet somehow, Eli understood them. It's calling us in, he said. Then we answer, Vareen replied. They guided the ship into the glowing tunnel at the heart's center. Inside, gravity shifted and time seemed to bend. The walls pulsed like veins carrying energy. When they landed, the ramp opened to a vast chamber filled with floating shards of crystal, each one showing fragments of galaxies, stars, and lives, memories of civilizations long gone. This is where it all began, Vareen said quietly, where the core first breathed life into thought. Eli looked around, feeling something stir inside his chest, a strange rhythm, like a heartbeat not his own. It's reacting to me, Vareen nodded. Because you are what it's been waiting for. A soft light formed before them. Slowly it took shape, a figure made of energy, neither male nor female, glowing gold and white. Its voice was calm, ancient, and echoing through the air. The final human has returned. Eli froze. Final? What do you mean? Humanity's essence was scattered, the being said. You were hidden among the stars, your memory erased to protect the code of balance. Now the code has found its way home. Vareen stepped forward. You sealed me to guard that code, to stop it from falling into the wrong hands. The being turned its glowing face toward her. You were our protector, Vareen of the Osari. But time betrayed us all. The council twisted our vision into fear. Eli clenched his fists. Then help us fix it. The being tilted its head. The core's power cannot be given, it must be earned. The choice must come from the link itself. From you, human. Eli's chest burned with light. The core's energy surged through him, filling his body with heat and sound. Images flashed in his mind, humans helping aliens, saving lives, building hope. Then others, wars, greed, destruction. Two sides of one species I don't understand, he gasped. Why me? Because you still care, the voice said gently. When others seek control, you seek connection. That is what humanity was always meant to be. The chamber began to shake. A red light filled the space. The council's fleet had arrived outside. Explosions thundered through the heart's outer walls. They found us, Vareen said. They'll destroy everything. Eli looked at her, then back at the glowing being. How do I stop them? The being reached out a hand of light. You cannot fight them with weapons, only with truth. Eli hesitated, then placed his hand in the light. In an instant, the core's power spread through him. His eyes glowed like molten gold. The energy surged outward, flooding the chamber and then bursting across space. Every ship in the council's fleet froze. Their weapons powered down. Their systems went silent. Across every screen, every channel, the same image appeared. Eli standing inside the heart, glowing with human light. This is not power. His voice echoed across the stars. It's a reminder. We are all connected. The core belongs to no one, not humans, not aliens, not rulers. It belongs to life. The fleet stopped firing. Silence spread through the galaxy. Vareen stepped closer, tears glimmering in her eyes. You've done it. You've awakened it. The core's voice spoke again, softer now. Balance has been restored. Humanity's legacy will not be forgotten. The light faded slowly, returning to peace. Eli fell to his knees, exhausted but alive. The golden glow around him dimmed, leaving only the soft warmth of the chamber. Vareen caught him before he could fall completely. Rest, human, she whispered. Your fight is done. He looked up at her with a weak smile. Not done. Just beginning. Outside, the fleets began to retreat, their ships drifting silently away from the heart. The galaxy watched as a single human and a single alien stood together. At the center of it all, two souls who had done what armies could not. Vareen helped him to his feet. What will you do now? Eli looked at the shining walls around them. Teach them what we forgot, that humanity isn't about strength or power. It's about choosing compassion when it's hardest. She smiled, her eyes bright with emotion. Then the core chose well. They walked back toward their ship, hand in hand, the core's light following them like dawn rising after a long night. Behind them, The ancient structure pulsed once more, sending a final message through the universe. The human heart is the key to every lock.